I've liked that have definitely been, I think, in like, you know, I like the British version of The Office, and you know, I'm sure the American version has its stellar moments because it's definitely part of the meme economy that I support. And so I like those moments of humor. I think we should laugh more. I like that sitcoms do that for a lot of people. Ironically, it doesn't really do that for me. But certain things hit, like The Good Place. I like Kimmy Schmidt too.
Kimmy Schmidt's great.
Kimmy Schmidt's good.
Yeah. There were certain things that did, like, even my friends will be like, you should watch this, and I'd be like, I really don't feel like I should watch that.
So as a Kimmy Schmidt fan, do you like 30 Rock too?
Okay, so once again, it's one of those things that has its moments, but I feel like I'm wasting a large portion of my life for a laugh that could be delivered in another way. Like, you know, that in a more engaged way than a sitcom. A sitcom, I think, is like a way of checking out.
I find myself returning to it more and more now, though, as I feel like I have less and less time to sit and pay attention to and enjoy something. Because
you're super high stress and you need that moment to, like, vacate self?
There's that, and then just the, you know, like, you know, I was working on editing stuff for Hoot and Waddle up until like 8 o'clock last night, basically, or sending out emails or doing this or that, and at 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, to relax before I have to face my day job on Monday, I was happy to sit down and watch Psych.
Yeah, I'm totally devoid of judgment on this front. And you have to understand, I have watched some truly shit television. I mean, like, there is not like any judgment in my place about the sitcom, about the format. I'm just saying, in general, you know, I like stand-up. And it's always one of those things where you're like, oh, you like stand-up, but you don't like...
Well, no, I can definitely see a disconnect there.
Like
there's a difference, and I'm very specific about the stand-up that I like. I don't like a lot of stand-up. I also
don't like reinforced stereotypes, so...
Right.
In a certain way, I think a lot of sitcoms embrace this... you know, proud to be stupid idea.
Well, we've talked about this. Even a show that I thought was super smart when I saw it when it first aired, like Frasier, there are very cringeworthy moments to me in there now.
And I keep getting, as I keep going in further in, like I'm on season 7 now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, it's just...
so much, like, there's so much homophobia, there's a lot of stereotyping, there's a lot of, you know, and... it's somehow just stuff that when I was watching it in the 90s, it just didn't occur to me that this was something that was not, you know.
We're in like an era of hyper elevated human change where, you know, 3 years is going to be different from 3 years, which is going to be different from 3 years. Nobody can envision the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And if you can't think about it, just go back by 3 or go back by 5.
Well, and what's interesting too is like, as somebody who I like to think I'm a very liberal person, I like to think that I am very open to however anybody wants to live, and I feel like I am, but there's also this sort of, you know, especially as somebody who grew up when PC became a term, I felt awful the first time that I just could not get it into my head that somebody wanted to be referred to as they or them instead of he or she. You know, as soon as people wanted to, and thankfully it's finally ingrained in my head, and I can do it without having to think about it anymore. It's you know, anytime that there's a shift like that, it's probably because of the you know, ingrained Jewish neuroticism that I have, is that, you know, I'm like, oh my God, have I gone through like my whole 36 years offending people at this point? Or, you know, it's, and then I guess there's just the idea of trying to do better now forward.
Sure.
Have you, by chance, have any of you listened to I think it was Fresh Air last week, where Terry Gross interviewed Kevin Hart?
No.
So Kevin Hart got grossed or terried. We can call it whatever you want.
Sure. Yeah.
But they're talking about like these jokes he made like a decade ago. And it just got to the point where Terry's just like, I don't want to rehash it, but it's like, they kind of went over, is this funny? Mm-hmm. And to hear Kevin Hart explain, yeah. Well, I mean, for one, sorry, Kevin Hart, you've never been funny, but that's neither here nor there. But it's like 10 years ago because of the way he was raised and of the time, which seems like so. Like he honestly thought that he wasn't hurting anybody and that those jokes he was telling was funny.
Sure.
Of course, now he's been around the world. He's been a little more cultured, or his excuse anyway, or his explanation. So he doesn't tell those kind of jokes anymore because he realizes it does offend people. But then I got like, Terry's like, I don't even want to like, I just want like, what makes it funny? Like, does offending like a whole group of people making fun? And he's like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, I was ignorant of it at the time.
But yeah. That is funny. Mm-hmm. It is funny not to offend necessarily a specific. You're always offending some group. I mean, I don't think you want to necessarily isolate people by race and then make fun of them. Sure. That's a whole different thing again in today's culture. Same by gender preferences, or even to refer to it as preferences. Or we're constantly changing. Humor's constantly changing. I think. Holding comedians accountable for jokes that they were made in a certain time. It depends on how. I think holding Kevin Hart accountable for saying something like, "Why does he have to support the gay?" He doesn't have to see himself as an ally, or those remarks. I think were more upsetting to me than maybe jokes he made 15 years ago. But I'm also I'm also of the mind that we should be making jokes about everything all the time. The more uncomfortable it is, the more we should joke about them until that it's like commonplace knowledge.
Yeah, I agree with that to a point, but I also think if there's a sensitivity level. I still I get that. But
somebody a good time rape joke is still funny. I'm just saying, like you can you time it right, it's funny.
I think that as having grown up at a time when it was socially acceptable to refer to something as gay derogatorily, it's and would never even cross my mind at this point to do that, but this comes up frequently, and then I actually really want to get back to The Good Place, by the way. It comes up frequently when Jenna Duncan and I talk about like Louis C.K., because he was somebody that I thought was funny. I still think that I think that in a lot of respects that the stuff that he has written is really good stuff that offers a lot of insight into the human condition. And on his level, really. But, I certainly don't agree with actions that he's done. And I don't think that his recent attempts to make a sort of comeback were good or even funny. But, there's this, and I think that actually Jason Woodbury posted or shared this article about a woman who had to come to terms with whether she could continue to enjoy Woody Allen's work in light of what he has or has not done. And, how do we separate, I was a kid who grew up and loved The Cosby Show. Yeah. It's, how far back does this go? Do we allow people's actions that we find out, either in the moment or even historically, does that then take away our ability to enjoy things that we've enjoyed, for decades?
I can't even, to that point too, I even caught myself watching Rosemary's Baby like a few months ago. Like, oh shit, this is Polanski.
Chinatown. One of the best fucking films of all time.
Yeah, but you guys, you have to separate your. I mean, if you read St. Augustine. I mean, there's so many. You go through the history
Sure.
of philosophy, of art, of music, of everything. And if you cannot separate the creation from the creator, you are screwed. You are left with like two things to read.
Isn't that have you ever seen Quills about Marquis de Sade with Jeffrey
Yes.
Wright? Like, isn't that the whole point of the movie? like he's
That's still a hard one for me to watch.
I haven't watched it in 20 years, man. I just
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but there's something to be said for I don't know. There's a compulsion to create. I think with sitcoms, it too often plays to the proud to be stupid group.
Sure,
and I like that The Good Place does seemingly the opposite.
Yeah,
it encourages you to think beyond the confines of the show.
Well, but again, I think that The Good Place. This is where my argument for the sitcom stems from. Because I watched a lot of sitcoms. There was a lot that I thought was really dumb. You know, my favorite ones growing up were, you know, stuff that I was probably too young to really get at the time. But I loved Mad About You because I thought it was a great, you know, picture of an adult relationship. I loved Seinfeld because of the absurdity of it. The Larry Sanders Show, I think, is you know, genius comedy. And, you know, another comedy that was not afraid to be not funny, you know, and The Good Place, I think also is walking that line of, yes, there's a lot of absurdity in it, but there's also a lot that is, you know, it's part of it is an uncomfortable laughter also.
And not to give too much into like, to your point, not to reveal too much into what happened in the last few episodes of the season, but
amazing episodes.
Yes, it was
we'll eventually get to.
Even like the episode that aired last Thursday,
the one that just came back from hiatus, yeah,
very clearly is making a strong point about the state of things today.
Oh, that was like
blatant.
a now episode. Have you seen the new episode?
The newest one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we won't talk about it too much, but as soon as you watch it, it's like, okay, they are very thinly making this comedy. Yeah. This is a straight commentary on things going on right now.
Sure, well, I would hope a show with such more purpitude would you know, take a moment to perhaps pause. And that's the thing. I think a lot of the show makes it very real. Like there's a lot of very real moments in the show that make you think about perhaps your own moral situation.
Well, and what's interesting, I think too, what's fantastic is that two of the main people who are in what is revealed to be the bad place at the end of the first season are somebody who did a lot of philanthropic work and somebody who devoted their entire life to ethics, you know, but it comes down to that motivation. Where does it come from? You know, Tahani is competitively philanthropic, and Chidi is a thinker to a point where it paralyzes him. You know, so that these things that we, you know, a pursuit of truth or a pursuit of you know, a study of right and wrong and ethical and moral behavior is not, you know, what is a good.
Well, what's your moral failing, Jared?
Probably apathy.
Do you know what yours is? Think about it.
Where do I begin?
Okay. Your biggest moral failing.
I would say that that I frequently fall on that spectrum of somebody else will take care of it.
Yeah.
Oh
I was thinking about this too, is that I'm cheaty where I have to go back and forth so much in my head that I end up not doing anything, and I'll be the guy who's like, don't take care of it.
You know what? I used to be, I very much more so than I have become in the last few years. I used to be the kind of person that's in that exercise where somebody will be like, will collapse on the ground and in a crowd and assume, well, it's a crowd. Somebody in this crowd will take care of it. It doesn't have to be me. over, the last few years, I've moved more towards the person of